Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigilant Network show. My name is Emma Vigilant, and you know what to do, folks. Subscribe. Put on push notifications once you subscribe so you know when we're going live. You can share this stream. You can like this stream. You can like this video if you're watching it in post. You can comment below, increase engagement. You could do all of those things. And you can also say hello to Bradley Alsop. Hello, Bradley.
Hello, everyone.
Is anything happening in the world of news?
No,
That is
slow
our
news
day
day.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just
You know.
in Western Pennsylvania this weekend.
Oh, weird. What were you doing there?
Just
What color's that shirt, by the way?
just gonna
Off
turn my
color
camera
joke.
up. Yeah.
We're happy
Kidding,
Trump's
kidding.
okay. I want him to die of natural causes. Particularly hopefully in a funnier way, like he falls into the ball pit at McDonald's,
Sits on his own balls.
until they explode.
Yeah.
Happy that he was not assassinated. Concerned about the future for the country. We'll be talking about the move to get rid of Biden and honestly, related to sports, just because it's all I can think about, because I want somebody who can defeat Trump, and the numbers look quite bad right now. And this country's just in a scary time, 100%.
Friend of the show, Osita Nwanebu, made this point, and we can move on to sports in just a second. But I do think it bears repeating that Donald Trump is like one of the most like cosmically lucky men to ever live.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a number of ways over the course of his like 50 years as a public figure, but like just recently the fact that bullet, if it were, an inch away, would have had been a completely different story, not only for him but for the country, but then also having the pick of Judge Aileen Cannon that he appointed to arbitrate his documents case, which was a random assignment amongst that district. Is just like he sometimes has these things go his way, where I'm just like, this is why people sometimes do think he has some sort of divine ordinance around him.
I'm sure. I mean, but he benefits from the Republican machine being so ruthless, and him having a cult of personality where he can exploit the machine that's already set up all of this stuff. Like, they've already packed the courts. That's a big part of it. They set up the situation for him,
right? For Cannon, for example, to be selected
exactly.
In that way, yeah.
Or for the fact that, then there's Democratic incompetence, not forcing RBG to retire in the middle of Obama's
still reeling from
term. And then she died right before the election, and Trump got to appoint her replacement, making way for a 6-3 court, which is horrible. So, yeah, we're failing to stop talking about politics right now, unfortunately. Because our country is so messed up, let's turn to outside of the boundaries of our country and just talk a little bit about the Olympics, which are coming up. And the soccer, we'll talk about footy from over the weekend. But the 2024 Olympics in Paris are approaching in, I guess, 10 or so days they're going to be kicking off. And the Summer Olympics, look, come on, let's be real. That's what everybody looks forward to. I like the Winter Olympics for reasons that are very personal to me, in the sense that my family is Norwegian and Finnish. Both, I got them from Norwegian on my dad's side, Finnish on my mom's side. So we have a lot of I still have family in Finland in particular who root for their athletes in the Winter Olympics, so I try to pay attention to that. And then I also have my Norwegian side of the family is super into skiing, so they get really excited about seeing some of their friends or people they know who compete at a competitive level. So I like watching the Winter Olympics, and because I love the hockey. I love the hockey. I wish that they need to bring the NHLers back. I hope they do that in 2 years, as opposed to what they did last time, where it's just like basically, college kids. I hated that. I know that that's how Miracle was won, but I want to see the professionals. I want to see the best of the Americans. I want to see Matthew Tkachuk out there representing America.
The reason we call that a miracle in the movie is called Miracle is because it happened one time.
Yes, but we don't have to worry about those shenanigans right now, because the NBA is in the off season. They get to release their players to play in basketball. We touched on the basketball angle of this, I guess, last episode or two episodes before, but the team for the United States is loaded, obviously. You've got LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid is playing for the United States as well. We have Tyrese Halliburton, who's on the roster. The Americans are obviously the betting favorite to win gold. The Americans on the women's side are overwhelming favorites. I mean, that should not be too difficult for them. They've got Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, Diana Taurasi. It's an all-star.
Caitlin Clark.
Hey, should have been her. Although,
Yeah.
look,
What the?
she seems to be running away with Rookie of the Year at this point.
After our conversation.
After our
last week, yeah.
conversation, look, Angel Reese is super impressive. I do think, though, that it'll probably her popularity and the fact that she's the entirety of that Indiana Fever team is going to break for her. But
I was laughing really hard about the New York Liberty essentially quadruple teaming Angel Reese to stop her double streak. That was really
that's
funny.
hilarious. I mean, look, Aaliyah Boston is good, but the rest of that team is not up to snuff.
And we've talked about it. There's two. The reason there are two, they got two first overall picks consecutively is because of how poorly they've played. So there's more to be done for that team. But yeah, I see what you're saying though in terms of the narrative, but also the usage, rate for Clark.
I mean, but for this women's Americans team, Kelsey Plum, I mean, Asia Wilson, like.
No, there's like the U.S. men's
Chelsea
team.
Gray.
The U.S. men's team is really dominant, but like the WNBA team, the women's team is essentially like if you actually made like the most effective WNBA All-Star team imaginable out of the current construction of the league.
It's that Kobe Shaq montage of them just dunking on everybody, right? That's exactly what that.
It's just a highlight reel.
Is going to be. And Taurasi is 42 years old, and so this is going to be a big, like a way for her to, near the end of her career, last opportunity to win gold. But for the men's, I mentioned, of course, that the men's team, the U.S. team is going to be favored, but Canada is, in terms of betting, the second favorite here. It's still plus money, obviously, but they have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Jamal Murray. They have R.J. Barrett. They have Dylan Brooks. So not a bunch of scrubs. And then Giannis Antetokounmpo's Greece ended up pushing out Luka Doncic and playing for Slovenia. So Greece will be a part of it as well. Australia, they have some good players. It's definitely the United States' tournament to lose, but still it should be some exciting games. On the tennis front, Wimbledon just concluded, and we have our victors there, including Alcaraz of Spain, who will, I think, be the favorite in tennis. He just won his second straight Wimbledon title against Djokovic, who's kind of falling apart age-wise. I mean, he's 37. He'll be competing as well.
And Alcaraz, just to emphasize how much of a like meteoric star he is in tennis now. He's 21 years old.
Yeah.
He's won as you said, consecutive Wimbledons on a surface that he, going into his first Wimbledon victory, was very shaky on and had not had a lot of experience on as a Spaniard, and already has conquered it twice, conquered grass twice, as well as winning the U.S. Open, great showings at the French and Australian Open. Like, he is easily very much the new face of men's tennis.
Yes.
So I agree with you that I think just based off of what we just saw, he is definitely in pole position to win Olympic gold.
Absolutely. And behind him will be the last gold winner, which is Alexander Zverev.
Yeah.
Sasha. He won in Tokyo, but that was a weird year, obviously, because of COVID, and they had to delay it, and a lot of people ended up not competing.
He's also a piece of shit.
He's not one. Oh, he is. He's not won a Grand Slam. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, in what way? Politically?
No. He's been accused of many sexually violent crimes.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll be rooting against him.
Yeah.
And look, I like to watch Alcaraz as much as the next person, and he just beat Sasha Zverev on in Roland Garros on clay, which is where, of course, the Paris Olympics are going to take place. So it's going to be an interesting
And Zverev is a
competition.
and Zverev is an all-time choker in
Yeah. Oh,
championship
he has a horrible
matches.
record
He
against top opponents, and particularly when it goes to like five
Yeah,
sets.
because
He doesn't have the conditioning.
right, because similarly to that point, this was another game, and I think he's probably at 4 or 5 of these with the French Open, as you were saying. Like he went up 2 sets on Alcaraz and lost 3 straight.
Right,
And as
right.
and the best thing is, and also another point you're making in terms of stamina, that is also what is an incredible thing about Alcaraz is just like he's young, but also he's just tireless. Like he
Right.
does not break. He seems
Oh,
as if
his conditioning's
he
phenomenal.
seems as if he's not never really breaking a sweat, and he runs like he can run like diagonally up and down the court to get essentially any ball. Like if he's at the far end of the at the baseline, he'll get volleys that like you wouldn't expect even some of the other best tennis players to be able to get a
Yeah.
racket on. He's
But it will be interesting because this is a difficult time for tennis players because it's in the middle of their busiest season, and there's been some consternation, I think, within the ITF about the fact that this is in the middle of the peak of the season. I mean, Wimbledon literally just happened, and so the physical toll on players, particularly a guy like Djokovic who's 37 and just lost in a final. I mean, damn, it's going to be difficult for him to change surfaces to turn around so quickly. But for someone like I know Coco Gauff, who has struggled to crack through in recent years to higher up in the tournament or to further on in the tournament, she's going to be competing for the United States, and she made the team in 2020. But she tested positive for COVID in that year. That was when the 2020 Olympics were pushed to 2021. So from watching the women's, I'm going to be watching out for her to see if she can win or medal. And her, clay is a favorable surface for her. So in terms of tennis, she's going to be who I'm paying attention to. Gymnastics, obviously, big deal specifically for the United States. Simone Biles, at 27 years old, will be returning to compete. And that core of that phenomenal team, which ended up coming in second and got the silver last time, a bit infamously, they'll be back with a vengeance. They're older, but they have a newcomer named Hesley Rivera. She's only 16 years old, and she will be part of the team. They're going to be favored to win because Russia cannot participate because of the invasion of Ukraine. So, just a good indication of how Western interests kind of dominate this because, yes, we vehemently are oppose Russia's invasion of Ukraine and think it's unconscionable. But the United States seemingly having no problem participating, even as it, funds a genocide of the Palestinian people with in Israel. So it's just kind of yeah. And by the
and
way, Israel, it doesn't matter. Their Olympic status is not in question at
And
the
if it were
games.
something about indiscretions involving the game, like involving doping or any sort of performance enhancement, I would understand. But I think it's like it's one of those things where it's a presumption of guilt towards an entire country's
Population.
into an entire group of countrymen and women and people, assigning that to them as if we as Americans, to put it in our perspective, are condoning, sanctioning, and agree with every single thing that our government does in our stead and in our name.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess what else we have? I mean, golf will be interesting too. Scheffler is the two betting favorites so far are both Americans, Scotty Scheffler and Xander Schauffele. And you have Rory McIlroy, who, oh boy, can he recover? He'll be representing Ireland. Colin Morikawa also representing the United States up there. John Rahm representing Spain. Victor Hovland, Norway. We'll see how he can do. Hideki Matsuyama will
Yeah,
be representing Japan.
that is a pretty stacked field too. That'll be a
Totally.
pretty competitive
Big names
group.
there.
Yeah, yeah. And I just wanted to highlight too for the women's final that, for Wimbledon, that Barbora Krejcikova, a Czech player who had not won a major. She's only won two: French Open in 2021, and then this time in Wimbledon. Good for her. Good for her for a player who's a little older, just in terms of the context of women's tennis. She'll be 29 this year, but she won her second Grand Slam title this year in Wimbledon. So congrats to her as well. And she beat Jasmine Paolini, who is an Italian player,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
to win Wimbledon, her second major.
And we also, of course, have the track and field group. We have Sha'Carri Richardson, who's going to
Yeah,
be leading.
my fave.
She rocks. She'll be leading the charge there. You also have Shelly Ann Fraser-Price, who is a two-time gold medalist in the 100-meter dash. She will be representing Jamaica. Sha'Carri Richardson, obviously, representing the United States, women's track and field. It's just never been more. I feel like just track and field in general, these folks are incredible, and they're really fun and easy to root for. That'll be really fascinating. We mentioned the basketball team. I meant did I say Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards also going to be on the team. It's going to be amazing that Anthony Edwards is going to be coming off the bench just to give a spark to this team.
Yeah,
That's
that's
how
also
stacked they
that's
are.
also just right. That's also just putting it in context that like the second unit of this USA men's basketball team includes like one of the one of if not the rising star in the NBA as
Yes.
like their fulcrum is in Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, incredible. So the United States is favored to get the most medals at 123 in terms of this forecast that the Associated Press reposted. China next at 87, Britain 62, France 56. And that would be 8 straight Summer Olympics in which Americans have gotten the most medals. So you could just see how the United States is very heavily involved in the Olympic Games in both the way that like the politics of it are portrayed as well as in its dominance in the fields.
And if just a little sneak peek for you, if for my purposes, if you ever catch any Greco-Roman wrestling or weightlifting, look out for my Persian countrymen who always do very well in those sports because our for some reason Iran is a large producer of very round, kind of intimidating looking men who can either who like to either get into a large meat battle on the wrestling mat or
Meat battle.
lift a very heavy weight over their head.
Yes. If for people, I just remembered this, why Sha'Carri Richardson might, people may remember her. She tested positive for marijuana and was disqualified for the games. Because it's not a, and people were outraged because she's a black woman. She uses it for pain management, and it's not a performance enhancing substance. The idea that non performance enhancing substances should ban players. I mean, look, Lawrence Taylor was on coke like a good majority of the time where he was dominating. And that's actually probably performance enhancing versus marijuana, which just isn't. It's just not. Coke is like gonna get him all like riled up.
Another dictionary entry in what you're referring to could also be the entire 1986 World Series
Right.
champion New York Met team.
Yes.
That every single one of those guys was on a severe cocktail of,
Right.
of drugs while they were playing.
100%. I mean, but Coke you could say is a little performance enhancing because maybe it increases your energy and focus. Pot, it's just for pain management. It's just for pain management. So
I'd have a decent amount of trouble, I think, if I smoked some weed and then ran a 500 meter.
oh yeah,
I'd be like, is everyone here mad at me? Did someone call the cops?
is everyone here mad at me?
Why are they looking at me like
Oh,
that?
why did I say that yesterday? Oh,
Was that weird that I said that?
Oh, it's so hot out here. I wish I could just sit
Yeah,
down.
no, I fall asleep.
Yeah.
I bring out a bag of chips.
All right, so those are the Olympics. That's really all I've got for what I'm going to be watching out for. The NBC, I really hope they don't do this thing this year where they do it on a tape delay. It's just such a pain. I understand they're trying to maximize views, but we live in an internet age. If people want the suspense or want, it undercuts the suspense of it all.
Speaking of tennis, that's always the issue for me with either the Australian French or Wimbledon, just because
Yeah.
a lot of the time I kind of get the notifications of who's won in these matches, like at 10 a.m. because obviously in England it's like 4 or 5 or whatever. So
Yeah.
but similarly, totally, it's like you're not gonna not get spoiled, especially for people who are probably, as many sports viewers can attest to, are following a lot of this stuff on Twitter or on
Yeah.
YouTube or whatever.
Absolutely. So over the weekend, two major soccer finals. Bradley is our soccer correspondent or our football, European football correspondent, but Argentina ended up winning its third straight major title, and it was in extra time. It was in Miami. Lionel Messi, he's in his upper 30s at this point. This is probably his last international soccer venture, especially because can we pull up this photo of his ankle? He ended up having to leave during the second half and get substituted out because he had an ankle injury where podcast audience, if you're just listening, you won't be able to see this image, but for people who are watching on YouTube, his ankle blew up like a balloon. It was really unfortunate to see, but at the very least, whoa. Yeah, that is, it literally looks like a hoof with a foot attached. I mean, the bottom of it is so swollen. It looks like, it looks like he has a hoof underneath his foot. I know, Bradley's cringing. It's tougher. You can take it off the screen. It's tough for you to see. So he was really emotional. I mean, like, who doesn't love Messi? I mean, it's impossible. I feel that way about. I was watching that receiver show on Netflix, Patrick Mahomes, and he comes up and he's the greatest, and it's like, but I don't. There's no way for me to hate you. Like you're just great. You're just a great guy. I think you're awesome. I think that same way about Messi. It's just there's no way to hate his greatness.
And it's also, even though obviously he had to leave due to injury, it's also, I mean, at the very least it's nice that it didn't coincide with
With a loss.
like a crushing extra time
Right.
loss as it did for Colombia, unfortunately. But credit to Argentina for sticking it out and gutting it out in a victory that isn't always how they win, because they do have a decent amount of really kind of exciting talent outside of Messi. But but of course with Messi, I mean, an offensive attack that usually is not held to no goals, and so, but which is also a credit to Colombia's defensive game plan
Right.
for Argentina. Really tough loss for Colombia, but Colombia has been playing significantly better soccer as of late, and they haven't won the Copa since they'd hosted it in like 2000 or 2001. So for them to be back here, 20 years later, I think just foretells good things for this national group going forward.
Oh, absolutely. And then it ended up being 1-0 in extra time. I mentioned Messi had to get substituted out. It was Lautaro Martinez. He hit the winner, and congratulations to Argentina for their third straight major title. There's also this that went down. The game was at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, and it was mayhem, apparently, basically around the stadium. This is footage here, and by the way, this will be a venue for the 2026 World Cup. But you can see the chaos as people are trying to get in. There was obviously a ton of excitement, and the police presence here did not do a good job. Folks watching, you can see, or just listening, you can just see how people are trying to charge through the gates. So part of the issue here was that fans without tickets were trying to enter because this was such a huge event. This footage also came out of folks trying to get, I mean, literally Mission Impossible style. Or I guess I associate that with Agent Cody Banks, which is a formative movie for me growing up. But I'm pretty sure they were parodying Mission Impossible, but my brain first goes to Agent Cody Banks. trying to get in through the air vent. These were some fans trying to get in. Incredible footage here.
What is going on here? People are getting into the Copa America through the ventilation system? What is going on here? What the heck? What is
So apparently that is what was going on. So they had to push back the start of Copa America to later because of all of the chaos surrounding this. Miami-Dade police had to issue a statement, and this is the kind of I don't know, mania that I don't fully understand as an American because I don't know, I can't say who these fans were, but potentially they were either Argentinian American or Colombian American.
If I'm not mistaken, a lot of the yellow-clad fans are Columbia fans.
Yeah.
But the thing is, to me, is first of all, as you're kind of alluding to, soccer, especially in Europe. I mean, this is the sport that we think we have fervent and kind of almost nearly kind of fanatical fan
Yes.
bases in America. This is the sport that has led to, honestly, not only just like, collapses of rafters and risers in stadiums because of a crush of people, people literally getting like
Yes.
almost falling into a sinkhole as a result of how much movement on the bleachers and risers, but also significant bloodshed and violence. I mean, where geopolitics and soccer really and sport really coincide and intersect is in soccer, with a lot of these enmities between that and rivalries that manifest between soccer teams are also somewhat ethnic and national as well. So all that being said, as much as I obviously this looks obviously quite stressful for the security personnel and the people there, I just feel like it's almost, to me, there should be more preparation for this type of significant influx of
Yeah.
fans, especially knowing how soccer games can transpire in a number of areas in the world. So it's like, I just feel like there's no real reason as to why anybody should have been able to climb through a shaft like that under anybody's watch at a literal NFL stadium.
I mean, it's kind of funny because I love fans, and I mean, what could we attribute or liken this to in America? The only thing I could think of would be maybe like if a Yankees fan were to walk around Boston in a jersey like that. Like maybe that's some of the level of fervor that you would get because you get some of that regional and
Yeah, definitely.
cultural
Or like
identity.
Giants Dodgers. I mean, that one Giants fan in Dodger Stadium, or other way around. He
Yeah.
got like, he was put in a coma from an altercation he was involved in.
But the United States is so massive, and we are all American at the end of the day. So it's difficult for us to understand what it must be like for when you to have your like nationalistic identity tied up with a neighboring country that you're facing off of, and something that matters so much to so many people.
And usually in those instances, I mentioned like that one with the Giants and Dodgers, the fans. Obviously, they're roundly condemned, and there's obviously, for the most part, criminal liability that comes with an incident like that. We've also seen, in terms of the matters of race, obviously, because in Europe, immigration, as much as it is a flashpoint in America, specifically, it's a real flashpoint in countries like Spain and Italy. And despite, obviously, as we know as we also, accept, as, some Americans accept, that we're a multinational society. Immigrants of all ethnicities and all nationalities come here and are Americans as they become citizens or live in this country. That very much plays out in sports, where people like Vinicius Jr. or Paul Pogba, these guys like that move to Brazil and are Brazilian nationals, or move to France or French nationals. But then they play for a French club or a French team after matriculating through academies to get to this point professionally. And the fans are incredible. Some, not all, obviously, but the fans, some are incredibly xenophobic. They're incredibly racist and don't like to see black players representing Spain, ethnically African players representing France, as an example.
Right.
And instead of there being a lot of pushback from this, sometimes people are setting off flares in the stands. They're throwing bananas onto the field as a racist like tactic. And in some cases, certain club teams and managers will almost defend it by being like, this is just the way it goes. We're competing. We want to get an advantage in any way that we can. So we're going to basically race bait. And this happened to Vinicius Jr., who plays for Real
Right.
Madrid, who is like potentially going to win the Ballon d'Or as like the best soccer player in the world. He's incredible. And he's brought so much success to Real. And still there are some fans that like resent him for the color of his skin.
Yeah, I mean,
So there's so much loaded in like soccer fandom, and seeing it kind of like any export of it to the United States
it's
stadium
so
is
foreign
fascinating
to
to
us,
see.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
But fascinating, and it's just the fact that that Hard Rock was not in Miami, not more, I guess, on alert for this, because these events that you're talking about, it's well established.
Right, right.
That's a little bit bizarre, and luckily it seems like, I mean, I think an officer was hit with a rock. It seems like they're okay, but it doesn't seem like we have any casualties at this point from any stampeding.
Yes,
So
fortunately.
worst case scenario avoided, but just a window into the passion of a lot of these fans. And then, you know, we have the Euro final, which also I caught a little bit of with a Spanish person, someone who's a Spanish, was born in Spain, now lives in America. And, you know, you just see how into it he is in particular. So I was happy for him, a friend of mine, that he ended up they ended up being victorious. Now Spain has the European Championship for the fourth time. That means that they now have the record. They were tied with Germany prior to this as the best team in the history of the Euro final. And once again, England fans are just
It does not come home once more.
no more.
But this is this. It was so frustrating to watch because this has happened with this is a very, you know, as much as I was kind of levying harsh criticism towards the USMNT coach Greg Berhalter, who was fired after the exit, the US's exit against Uruguay in the Copa. Gareth Southgate, the British manager, the UK manager, has a similar problem, which is that despite the enormous amount of talent he has on this roster, with guys like Jude Bellingham and Phil Foden and Bukayo Saka, he's never figured out how to play them all together in a way that is like offensively dynamic. So as a result, he basically has always employed a strategy where it's designed for basically the players to score at one goal, essentially, at
Right.
least get 1 point on the board, and to then just essentially try their luck with their defense for the rest of the game, so as to not take any risks and basically contain the other team, so as to not give up a goal, but to win basically with the thinnest of margins. And when when the strategy and the scheme does not bear that out, when the defense is actually not capable of doing that, the floodgates can open, which it did with Spain, and Spain was able, despite the British being able to get on the board, that type of strategy, if 2 or 3 goals are scored, you've already put yourself in a position where you're in contain.
Yes.
You're in defense. You're on defense.
You're crouched.
It's right. You're in a defensive posture. It's hard to remove yourself from that and then kind of switch stem the tide to go into a fully offensive posture when you've already put yourself behind the 8 ball in that way. So, and this has happened a number of times, even in games that they've won. Even in games that they won in this tournament, like a 1-0 win against Serbia in the group rounds, I think was one of them. It's just like the UK team has seen this a number of times from Southgate.
Well, they also lost in the finals last time, if I'm
Right,
not mistaken.
exactly.
Yes.
To Italy, and
Yeah.
and so the same results have kind of been had.
Right, that
with-
was in Wembley.
That's right. It was the 2021. What was supposed to be the 2020 Euro that took place in 2021.
Right.
UK v Italy, and it was the same. It was 3 years later. It's the same result essentially. So, I think if the UK are smart, I think hopefully they could go the way of the US team and fire Southgate and find somebody who can really make the most of this roster that they have.
Right. So that's that. That's our any other thoughts here on the games?
Oh, just to keep speaking of, because you mentioned that what's her name, Hesley. the young gymnast.
Yes, Hesley. It's in my notes.
I just brought her up because I wanted to talk about another similarly youthful prodigy on the Spanish
Hesley
team.
Rivera.
Hesley Rivera. Just speaking of, but for Spain, just to keep an eye out for our soccer fans. Lamine Yamal, I believe his name is a incredibly dynamic, exciting player who on the Spanish team who absolutely had a coming out party this tournament for Spain, and he is literally 16 years old. And there was obviously a lot of discussion before the tournament of like he's kind of one of their biggest offensive focal points. Can he shoulder the burden of this as a 16-year-old? And he really did. And so I think I'm just finding it so impressive and incredible, especially for a sport like soccer, because that's, speaking of the academies and kind of how these players do matriculate sometimes, they are scouted and trained, and they train at such a young age. So to be born in 2007 or 2008, which is insane to think about, and to have this much of an impact on a winning side for a continental tournament is just so enormous, and so it must be such a cool moment that he'll relish for the rest of his life. And he's only 16 or 17. Like his career he's literally at the beginning of his career.
That's
incredible. and he's won the Euro with his countrymen. So just a cool thing to
very cool
think about.
I mean, it's almost like how old was Mbappe when they won? Right, for France.
Oh yeah, he must have been super young also at that. I'll double check.
A little bit of that energy, and I know that Harry Kane, didn't he ended up that was a big storyline, getting sidelined by the coach, even though because he has a great history with the team, but wasn't producing necessarily.
And in his older age, he's very much kind of a pretty dimensional, like just striker, kickball and goal type of guy, as opposed to like whereas some of these other guys had a little bit more dimension to them. But again, it was sort of a little too late of kind of like actual scheme adjustments from Southgate to impact actually winning the Euro this time for it to actually come home.
Well, thank you. Not home since 1966. So sorry to England fans. Thank you to our soccer correspondent, Bradley Alsop. Now, here's a way for me to talk about politics without fully talking about politics, and that is to bring up the unlikely voices in the Biden must drop out camp. Should we start with Charles Barkley, who really cracked the door open for us?
Let's get our color first from the king.
I mean, I love Charles Barkley, trans rights advocate, usually on like the right side of politics all the time. America's sweetheart, Charles Barkley, imploring Biden to step aside because if folks here are not paying attention, Joe Biden is in a polling hole that I do not believe he can recover from after his debate performance, in which he showed that he is too old to serve for a second term. Now, vote Democrat, whoever ends up being on the ballot, but we have a window of opportunity here to replace him because most people don't think like we do. Most people think about voting for president in a different way than if you are a registered Democrat or somebody who is politically engaged, or even a registered Republican and somebody who is politically engaged. The people who are independent need to be motivated to come out. And right now, Joe Biden is losing in every swing state. Trump is up 7 points in Arizona. That's well outside the margin of error. Up 4 points in Georgia, up 2 points in Michigan, up 4 points in North Carolina, up 4 points in Nevada, up 3 points in Pennsylvania, and up 5 points in Wisconsin. This would be not just a win for Trump, it would be an electoral college bloodbath, which is not something that the Democrats can stomach, because that would also mean that Trump would have, in this scenario, both the Senate and the House. Unchecked power for Donald Trump if Biden decides to cling on to the race. Now, you could say, Emma, the polls are wrong. They're not this wrong. This is an aggregate of polls. And the polls were right in 2022. The Republicans were saying it was a red wave, but that's not what the polls said. The polls were right in 2020, predicting Biden's win, but in fact, Republicans actually overperformed slightly in that instance. In 2018, polls also were right about the Democrats doing well. In 2016, the polls are closer than people say. Most forecasts had Hillary winning, but it was like a 2/3 chance or something like that. And in reality, what it really means is out of every 3 elections, Trump would win 1 and Hillary would win 2. She ended up winning the popular vote. But the point is that this is, unfortunately, our electoral system is favored in a minoritarian way. So the Electoral College is the way that the presidents get determined. And Democrats need to perform like 3 to 4 points ahead in the national average in terms of popular vote polling. As a rule, it could be a little lower and they could still win, but as a rule, for them to win the presidency, Biden is well behind where he needs to be on that front. So for everybody that wants to stop Trump from getting reelected, this is the moment to speak up. And I'm thankful for our buddy Charles Barkley here, sticking his neck out, sticking it into politics.
Situation back then. I wonder if you might weigh in right. You feel as though the culture politically is developing in America right now.
I just feel sadness. You got the greatest country in the world, and I have nothing but admiration and respect for President Biden. But it's time for him to pass the torch to a younger generation. He's been a great person. He's been a great man. This ain't something I'm saying now. I've said it like a year ago. It's time for him to pass the torch. And I don't want to hear about the convention is coming up soon. He's had a great life. He's one of the greatest people I've ever been fortunate to be around in my life. But it's time to pass the torch. And listen, President Trump, I would never vote for somebody who had that mentality. You should always have respect for the office of whoever who's in the presidency. Now, I get mad at these sports teams. Some of these bozos won't visit the White House because there's a Democrat or Republican in there. That is stupid. It's the President of the United States. We should always admire that office, no matter who's in there.
All right, I don't know about that part, Chuck, but sentiments shared. Now,
You know he's an office respecter.
he totally is. But this is like what an America, like, I don't respect the office of the presidency, but that doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of Americans, especially, if you're 40 and older, or like my fiance's like dad or something like that, who's just like, I like Reagan, I like Obama. This is how you motivate people, and Biden not being able to talk is a pretty big problem because he can't campaign effectively. He can't speak extemporaneously. He's having difficulty motivating people to get off their couch instead of saying, I'm done with politics. I hate both Trump and Biden. That's the battle here. Now, let's hear the voice of the Olympics, Bob Costas, weigh in. We've got a sports figure here talking about how Biden should step aside. Now, Charles made those comments, I think, before the assassination attempt on Trump. Costas now makes this point here earlier today.
And many Democrats are still saying this. They lay out all the reasons why Donald Trump is loathsome and a threat to democracy, an existential threat. And then they say that's why we have to get behind Joe Biden. No, that's exactly why Joe Biden must be ushered out. As I said at that time, it was so obvious, said it to Abby Phillip last year on CNN. Biden had a chance to be seen by history as a statesman and a patriot. He spared the nation a second Trump term. He could have gone out in a gracious fashion. Now, we can no longer indulge his delusions. It's a shame. It's a kind of a Shakespearean tragedy, perhaps with him as King Lear and his wife as Lady Macbeth, but that's all secondary now. Precedent doesn't matter. Oh, he is the incumbent. He won all the votes in the primary because he had no opposition. These are desperate times, and they call for measures that are appropriate to the circumstances.
2 weeks before the debate was the Hollywood fundraiser. The Washington Post sort of went inside. I want to put something on the screen. Here's what they found about what took place at the fundraiser. Some attendees said it was even worse at the smaller receptions before Biden took the stage, greeting hundreds of supporters for grip and grin photos. The president stumbled over small talk and seemed frail, according to 6 attendees. For the high-level donors who were meeting the 81-year-old Biden for the first time, several said they found his decline shocking. It makes me wonder if there hadn't been the debate performance. Bob, if the debate had taken place in September, as was initially intended with the Commission on Presidential Debates, I don't know that we'd be even having this conversation because all the people at that fundraiser, Clooney included, weren't speaking until the debate.
Yeah, and to me, and this is for the stick to sports crowd, this is been so overwhelmingly obvious for so long, you don't need a degree in public policy from Harvard to see it and to say it, if you're willing to say it, any more than you need a degree from MIT to say 2 + 2 is 4. And it makes you wonder whether we've been gaslit by the Democrats. The Republicans major in gaslighting everybody with Trump as their standard bearer. But this had to have been obvious to people surrounding the president, people who observed the president. Wouldn't it have been an act of patriotism, if that's not too overblown a word in this case, to lay that out before the American public?
Let's go. Okay. Bob Costas.
Bob Costas spitting fire.
Voices of Reason. Yeah, look, I've laid out how I feel about this. I think we're in a moment of real crisis in this country. I'm going to vote for whoever is the Democrat. I believe that you hold your nose and vote for whoever you need to do in terms of who's opposing the worst option. But I feel like people are absolutely insane if they think that most people aren't just disgusted by the fact that this is the option that the Democrats are presenting. And now that people have all seen the fact that he's cognitively declined, clearly, how they can feel that they can motivate people to go to the polls. Hey, we're the sports broadcasters. We're the sports. This is where normie people. This is a good representative of it. I mean, that maybe not Bob Costas.
And by the way,
but yeah.
And by the way, I saw Bob Costas speaking with Walter Cronkite on CNN. And all I wanted to say to Bob is, watch me.
Watch me.
He wasn't at the NATO summit when I spoke to go to my ear. He wasn't there. He should have been there.
Pretty good, Bradley. Anyway.
I'm better at,
My wife's giving me hell.
I'm much better
anyway.
I think I'm better at King Lear era Biden than like, this is a big effing deal, Biden.
It's a bummer to have to make fun of Biden's mental decline, honestly, via imitations. I wish that the dude would just like, he's got a nice beach house in Delaware. Schumer was just visiting him there. He can go and hang out and live his life and eat some candy and hang out with his grandkids, dude. Enough already. And that has been our politics segment. Now, we will read some IMs and get out of here. It's the slow time, folks.
We're in the doldrums.
Bob Costas, the election said, notice that Bob Costas is another rich, white, elite man. You're right, it's the elites. Now from Trinidad, Bradley, don't forget Nico Williams, too. Spanish player. He turned 22 on Saturday.
And he had the crucial opener, because it was 0-0 for some time, and then Williams opened up the scoring, which was huge for Spain.
Jeff from South Jersey says, Sydney McLaughlin Lavrin 400-meter hurdles from Jersey will be the most locked for a track gold medal. A Jersey girl. How did I miss this situation? Sydney McLaughlin Lavron. Yeah, okay, awesome. She's from New Brunswick?
Yeah, she's great.
New Brunswick, we count that as north. We count that. I mean, it's central, but people pretend there's no central Jersey.
Right. Yeah, no, it's central in my view. But if you went with the binary, I guess you would call it north.
You would call it north, which we claim. Bradley and I are both from North Jersey. Dan from Columbus, the 30 for 30 about the Russian team that lost to the Miracle was probably my second favorite 30 for 30 after Jordan rides the bus. Ooh, I haven't seen that one. What is your favorite 30 for 30? That's a really good one.
I have a number. The You Don't Know Bo is amazing.
You Don't Know Bo is so good.
The Bo Jackson one's really good. The Michigan College one is really good. Jalen Rose, Chris Webber. Early 90s. And then the Leitner one is also quite good, the Christian Leitner one. But my favorite might still be of all time is the Brady 6.
Yeah.
I love the
one?
profile of all the QBs picked before Brady.
Ugh, I hate. The one that for some reason sticks out in my mind, well, the 30 for 30 on the Nancy Kerrigan Tanya Harding one is really good. And the Chris Herron one, who was a player. I mean, this is more of. I watched this when I was much younger and less sports conscious, so I was maybe a little bit more wrapped up in like the personal story of it. But it is an incredible story. Chris Herron, who was from Fall River, got a chance to play for the Celtics and just had a horrible addiction, and how he played through that, what that was like for him, how he got back up on his feet was a really fascinating one. I gotta watch some more. But yeah, those are some really good ones. I would never watch the Reggie Miller one because I hate him, but
Ooh,
I hear that one's pretty good.
That one is good, but it's also obviously nauseating as a Knicks fan.
Yeah. And then also the one about the Five, the 30 for 30.
Yes, yeah,
is
that's one of my faves.
on the Wolverines. Yeah. So, which is interesting because, yeah. Did you mention that already?
That was one, yeah, because they sort of intersect. The Leitner and the Fab Five ones are
Yeah.
both kind of a piece with one another. Jeffrey B in the YouTube chat also mentioned the University of Miami one is also great about
That's
like
a good one.
about like the just the unbelievable talent that team
Oh,
had in
yeah.
the late 90s.
And how they just decided that they were gonna recruit in a different way. And that they were going to take kids from the area and kids that maybe were like in some trouble and things like that.
Which leads
So-
to, like Ed Reed, Warren Sapp, Ray Lewis, like
Yes, some incredible players. Noah from Tampa, to everybody else, it probably feels like God wants Trump alive, but to Trump himself, it probably feels like God might want to kill him. Dan from Columbus, the 30 for... Oh, I already just read that one. Josh from Chicago. I'm a defender of Southgate as a man, but he's undoubtedly English, and he's undoubtedly England's best manager, but it's time for a change. They need a coach who can match up tactically with the attacking talents of Foden, Saka, and Bellingham. Yesterday's result was impossible or disappointing throughout, especially as Spain lost arguably the best player in the world at half, Rodri, to injury. Had Watkins started over Kane, I think they might have won. And the final I am of the day, Noah from Tampa. How about the OJ one? Yes, that's the 6-part series OJ Made in America.
that's like
I never finished it.
oh, it's so good.
I know it's really good. I just knew so much about OJ and that trial through like my own kind of
I may have not
obsessive period about it. But
I may have not watched the final episode of that. I would like to do a rewatch of that just because I loved how thorough and
yes,
lived in like every not just how it was presented and how it was organized, but just like all the people that Ezra Edelman was able to interview and discuss the not just OJ himself, but the historical moment.
absolutely.
That kind of both characterized the incident, but also sort of how it was emblematic of that time so much, like in the context of the LA riots
and his relationship with race
and his relationship with race too.
His
Exactly.
relationship with he was not a black man that stood up for other black men,
100%,
or
and
black people.
And especially, with Chris Darden with the attorney, that was very much like they grew up in a similar area in Los Angeles as kids, and he always felt that about OJ, that he did not give back to the community that he came from.
Right.
And so it was also that was also sort of a microcosm.
I don't think I got to the Chris Darden part, but he made that claim.
That was all. It was sort of it's sort of established kind of involuntarily in the documentary, but it's kind of emphasized in the American Crime Story fictional representation.
Yes.
that was somewhat of a resentment point for Chris Darden.
I did watch it. I don't remember that part, but okay. So look, I mean, it definitely has historical inaccuracies. That David Schwimmer portraying Rob Kardashian. And
Juice, please.
And
Juice.
the gratuitous scenes of his kids being like, "We love fame." It's like, okay, we get it.
Our name is Kardashian.
Yeah, like we got it.
There had to be some sort of contractual obligation where it's like you need to at least write one scene where it's very clear that the kids are Kardashian children.
Yeah, yes, but I will say I thought that was like maybe the best thing that Ryan Murphy has ever done.
Yeah, no, it's such a good show.
Like I loved
Yeah.
Glee growing up, but Glee was terrible in the end. I mean, the first 2 seasons are okay, and it's just
And it's like iconic just for like what it was.
for how absurd they got away with just like the most.
Oh,
I mean, that was around the time 30 Rock was airing, and you just see, I mean, 30 Rock's a way better written show, but you could just see how none of these jokes are making it on air these days.
no way.
Glee was mean-spirited to a degree.
And also
30
you just
Rock's
would
smart.
and also you just wouldn't have those like that many kind of absurd musical numbers in
Yes.
a way, which I appreciate that they took some liberties with.
Some horrible cultural appropriation.
no question.
And then they just like say they're doing it, but do it anyway, and it's like, all right. But anyway, that was the best one that he did, because then he did those other follow-up for American Crime Stories, like the one about the
Gianni Versace.
Yeah,
and,
that's terrible.
And then I think there was one more. I just forgot what it was.
Yeah, I'm forgetting what it was too.
But
this one was good.
And also, I just think also it's a testament to to the acting going on. The acting was everyone was operating at such a high level in the sense of like Courtney B. Vance is Johnny Cochran, Sarah Paulson is Marsha Clark,
She's the best part.
Yeah, she's Sterling K. Brown is Chris Darden.
Yes.
Nathan Lane playing F. Lee Bailey, and my favorite, honestly, is John Travolta playing Bob Shapiro. He's just unrivaled. It's just so good.
Oh, and Courtney B. Vance is Johnny Cochran.
And
he played him really well.
And even the scenes where like shows like how he gets racially profiled and stuff like that by the police, even though he's like an actual like
Connie
leading Connie Britton is Faye Resnick.
Plays the morally corrupt Faye Resnick.
The morally corrupt Faye Resnick.
Yes, so good.
She was actually just on an episode of The Kardashians on Hulu because Kris Jenner and her are friends.
Oh, I'm sure she was. Oh my God. I have to rewatch this. I forgot Alan Dershowitz is on the law team.
Correct. Oh yes, he makes an appearance.
Do you remember who plays him?
No, who plays him?
Okay. You've seen Sex and the City, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about which husband of the main four women.
Wait, is it David Eichenberg? Is it?
No.
Oh, is it Evan?
It's Evan Handler. Yeah. Plays
That's
Alan
awesome.
Dershowitz.
That is so.
Harry
I love
Goldenblatt.
Evan Handler. I love.
Oh,
Harry.
he's great.
He's the best.
My fiance tried to show me that show Californication that he's in. Didn't stick, but I guess he's pretty funny.
Yeah, that was a misbegotten HBO.
It's
mid aughts.
It's fine,
boondoggle.
But it's just like, all right, I get you're a man. I get why you're interested in this. It's the same reason I can't get into Entourage. I understand it's fun for you. Maybe not, but to be fair to my fiance, he does not like Entourage. He's not a douchebag. Oh, sorry.
Is there a douchebag in the room?
You really do like Entourage?
Oh, I watched.
What the hell?
I watched so much Entourage.
I would never have pegged that.
It is just. I mean,
you are nothing if not unpredictable. I mean, from your like, you can have the girliest like love the girliest shows, but then also like this like Entourage.
I don't really discriminate. I basically watch everything, and
you do,
and
enjoy it all.
I enjoy. Yeah, it's just hard for me not to at least find some way to bring myself into it. Entourage is extremely problematic. One of maybe the most inappropriate culturally. It's absolutely a landmine for misogyny, homophobia, xenophobia, you name it.
Yeah.
But it is just so funny to watch these guys just like sitting in an enormous palace being like, why won't they see me for Aquaman?
Hey, so can I tell you something? All right, we really should wrap up, but something that made me laugh is Adrian Grenier. I saw he was on Jordan Peterson recently.
Oh,
It was, I'm 90
oh,
sure
that's brutal.
it was Jordan Peterson or some other right-wing show. No, it was Jordan Peterson.
Oh my!
He was on. He's on.
Adrian.
I honestly want to watch that and subject myself to that just to see how stupid
That's
he is.
really horrible.
I knew there was something about his screen presence I didn't like.
Well, he also hasn't really acted significantly since basically Devil Wears Prada. So I wonder.
And
if
he
that
sucks in that movie too. He ruins her career because.
No, he's definitely pretty evil. He's
he's
definitely pretty. He's kind of very much in that trope of like, so-called good guy in a movie when you actually unpack it a little bit is kind of like insidious and wants to like kind of control his romantic interest, i.e. the Ross Geller problem.
Yes. Bob Costas the election says, where does this podcast end and where does the private conversation between you two begin? I mean, to be honest with you, this is a window into us hanging out.
Yeah, it's just start record or not.
All right, guys. With that, we'll end there. So, God, that 30 for 30 question got us on a real tangent, huh? Appreciate you all. It's the slow time.
That's right. Why not? Why not?
It's the slow time. All right, we will see you on Monday.
Bye-bye.